Hi, I'm Ren. Welcome to the Ren Den. First of all, as promised, lights. I think they're so cute. But what we're actually going to talk about today is something that you won't have seen before unless you follow me on Instagram, which you could. Ren Den Crafts on Instagram is the completed Samantha Claridge rainbow sampler. I'm just really pleased with having finished it. It's taken, I think I bought it something like 18 months ago. And before Christmas, I was sort of somewhere in the middle, I think. And I just kind of was like, right, we're at the point now where we could just finish it. So I've been spending most evenings doing sort of maybe a couple of squares at a time. So I just wanted to brag about the fact that I finished it and talk about what I learned from it, what went well, what I would do differently next time, and then we'll talk about some future project ideas and plans. So hope you enjoy. So the way that the sampler is laid out is actually really helpful for if you've done a little bit of embroidery before, but a lot of it's still quite new. So some of the ones along the top, this is just a back stitch, this is satin stitch, this is cross stitch, chain stitch, running stitch, are sort of the basic ones that you would find the most useful in the most context. And then as you go down, they get a bit more sort of hyper specific. There's a couple of repeats, but like you're always doing a different shape. So I'm not mad about that. And yeah, you get into things like couching threads down here. This is French knots. This is a woven wheel. I enjoyed that. This was coral stitch. I liked that. Bullion knots, quite hard. And then towards the bottom, you get some things which are not necessarily the stitch is complicated, but the shape that you're constructing with the stitch is complicated. So this is basically just a back stitch, but you're kind of weaving between things and sort of trying to see the shape in 3D as you're building it. So all in all, I thought it was a fantastic sort of exercise for trying out a bunch of different stitches. The end product looks really nice. I need to work out how to display it. Maybe like on the wall below the shelves might be nice. But yeah, all in all, I really enjoyed doing it, and I think it's set me up really nicely for some other projects, which we'll get along to. I also definitely found it a lot easier once I bought the stand. The stand is new. I had a little bit of Christmas money left, and I decided I would buy something really basic. It can't have been more than about 20 quid, just to see if it was the sort of thing that I would find useful. And actually towards the bottom, when you have things like couching, like bullion knots, it was much easier for the hoop to be held by something else, and then I had both hands free to construct the stitch. I also found from that the hoop kept tension a lot better when I wasn't holding it, because this is just holding literally onto the hoop, whereas obviously when you hold it, it's incredibly difficult not to like push into the fabric ever and, you know, hand cramp and stuff. And I definitely found that my stamina was a lot better in terms of like how much I could do before my hands got tired. I was getting tired, different thing, and often that was why I had to stop, even like sitting under the lamp. But yeah, I felt it in my hands a lot less. Like I could do, before I had the stand, I could do like 2 squares at a time at a push, and then that would be like, okay, that's it, I need to do nothing now. Just because of like holding everything. And you know, with the stand, I was getting 2 or 3 or 4 before, but honestly it was bedtime. So rather than just being like, I'm going to do a little bit and then I'm going to stop and, you know, continue with my evening, it was like, no, I can do this for the whole evening, which obviously pros and cons to that. But yes, would recommend broadly. And it also made it look really nice. Like it just looks really nice while it's standing there. So I would, when I have it out in, or like around the house, when I was doing it in between other bits, it didn't look like just a thing was sort of placed, like sort of dumped in a place. It looked like a presentation. So that's partly why I've left it in the frame, to show it to you guys. Also because, you know, a handy holding tool. And yeah, I need to work out where I'm going to put it because I need the frame for other things. So yeah, broadly speaking, I would definitely recommend this sampler. Like I said, it's a really great way of trying a bunch of different things. It comes out really nicely. There were a couple towards the end where the instructions were a little bit unclear. So fortunately, I have the Royal Society of Needlework Essential Stitches book, and that had most of these in it. So I could use the more detailed instructions. I'm sure the internet also has more detailed instructions for the ones where it gets a little bit unclear. One of them, I think it was this one, the instructions didn't seem to line up to the diagram. So I decided to follow the diagram because the stitches are printed on the underside of all of these squares, which is really great for following. But if I followed the instructions rather than the diagram, all those lines showed through. So I went back, followed the diagram. But otherwise, it's an immense thing. It's 50 squares, and I had a really good time doing it. So, now what? I have a couple of ideas. Let me just move this to the side very slightly so we've got a bit of room. So in terms of embroidery projects, obviously, I'm not just doing embroidery. There's a bunch of other stuff going on as well. But I always like to have an embroidery project or two on the go, kind of in the background, because they're a bit slower and they tend to take a little bit more time. So it's nice that they kind of poke along in the background, and then I do shorter things. Anyway, you know. So the longest term project that I've got on the go right now is my Zelda jacket. This was a white jean jacket that I dyed and have started embroidering bits of Breath of the Wild and other Zelda game references on. This took ages, this bottom bit. It says, it's dangerous to go alone, take this, in Hylian script, in the colours of the spirits or goddesses or orbs, depending on the game that you're in. The thing I've finished most recently is the Hylian shield, which I'm really proud of. And I've got, as you can see down here, I'm starting the Master Sword, and I need to unpick some of the Silent Princess because it hasn't quite turned out how I wanted it to. But yeah, so this is a sort of very much a long-term project. You probably won't see it a lot on this channel because it's such a long-term thing, and I tend to just do it in the evenings in front of TV. So I will at some point do a video on how I make the templates because I think that's interesting and useful. But broadly, follow me on Instagram, Renden Crafts, if you want to see the progress on that, because unless something interesting happens, that's probably where it'll be. The other longer term project that I've just recently started is a thread journal. Now, I know this is backwards in the hoop, okay? This is on purpose. I will explain. So I've seen thread journals. I thought it looked like a bit too much effort, but I really like the way that they turn out. And then I got this template for free with issue, I think 62 of the Love Embroidery magazine. And I thought, what the hell, I'll put it in a hoop and see, you know, what we do. So the reason I've put it in the hoop this way round, so normally, obviously, your design would be on the front here, and I've done it backwards, is because that way I can lay it on top of whatever I want to do a little icon of and trace it straight onto the fabric without having to take it out of the hoop. And because I'm basically going to do that all year, I didn't want to have to like keep resetting the hoop. It's not great for the fabric as much as anything else, and I didn't want to. So I put it in backwards, which has worked quite well for me so far. This is my needle minder, which is also on backwards to the fabric, but the right way for the hoop. Who can explain my processes? So far I've done 2 little icons for January, which I'll show you a close-up of. I've done a brown bird to celebrate the fact that we got a bird feeder in the garden, and so far the only visitor has been one little dunnock, but I'm sure the birds will find us eventually. And then the other one I did was a little paw print surrounded by white, like it's in snow, because we took the kittens outside for the first time in some snow, and they had broadly positive reactions to it. And I just wanted to commemorate that because it was very sweet. They got quite chilly quite quickly, so I think we won't be doing it very often, but to give them a new experience. I think it was fun and they enjoyed it. And I've also stenciled in a graduating cap, because I will be graduating later this month. This now dates when I filmed the video. It is currently, call it mid to late January when I filmed this video, but because I had already scheduled the shelf reorganizing video and the lights are new, that sort of forces me to work from a specific timeline. So by the time you see this, I will probably have some more icons on this. Again, this is going to be largely an Instagram thing, because it'll be just, you know, here's a new icon as and when. So follow me over there, Renden Crafts, if you want to see how this is going, and I'll probably do a video about it at the end of the year to sort of, you know, how it went, how it looks, that sort of thing. So those are my two longer term projects. The other embroidery thing that I want to get going on is an embroidery sampler of kind of monumental proportions. Again, this is going to be a long-term thing, but I think I will do it in specific batches, or at least the first bit will be in a sort of section and then take a break and come back to it. I've had in my head a cool idea of doing basically a fabric scroll with a line of a stitch and the name stitched in as well, and hanging it above the chair here. And so it can either go below the chair, or I'll roll up the bottom and turn it into like a sort of two scroll. I've got some sticks, so one will be the top and one will be the bottom. I am going to do a video about starting that off, so I'm not going to get into too much detail about it right now, but suffice to say, I've already made a spreadsheet, of course. And what I'm planning on doing is kind of trying to randomize the order and the colors, just to make it sort of fun and to try and avoid the novelty wearing off and being left with a sort of half-done thing. The other embroidery project that I would like to do is, this room needs a clock, because often when I'm filming, I film on my phone, so I can't tell what time it is. And it would be useful to have a separate indicator of time. I also favour an analog clock, and my household as a whole favours digital clocks. So in here is the only place where I can have a non-controversial analog clock. A, because they're cute, B, because it'll be useful, which is my two favourite pillars of any project. What I'm planning on doing is embroidering some fabric with the numbers on and some decoration, and I don't know, maybe mounting it on a canvas or a sort of wood circle or something, and then having the clock mechanism go through the middle and boom, embroidered clock. I've only really started looking into that, so that's very early doors sort of thing, but I will definitely do a video about that if and when I do it, because that's going to be such an experiment, and that's my favourite thing to make videos about, is I've had an idea, can I make it happen? So yeah, lots of embroidery ideas. I think broadly those will cover me for embroidery for the year, because I'm not just an embroidery person. I like all sorts of crafts and I do all sorts of crafts. So in terms of embroidery specifically, that'll be plenty for me to be getting on with, I should think. And then there will be other things. I have a couple of other non-embroidery tasks in the pipeline that I don't love talking about projects before I've started them, or even when I'm like mid the project, because if I don't finish it, then it's like, what happened to that thing that you mentioned and then you never did? And I think the whole point of this channel is to be a sort of non-pressured kind of fun crafting environment, and the minute I start going, I'll do this, that's then pressure. I think the reason why it feels okay to do that with embroidery is because it's such a slow burn thing for me, and it's such a like going on in the background sort of thing. And if I didn't talk about especially the longer term projects in this way, I would never talk about them here, and you wouldn't know, and that would be a shame. More reasons to follow me on Instagram, Renden Crafts. Am I boring you yet? So yeah, I think that is enough to be getting on with. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that you enjoyed this aesthetically. I am going to try and find a way of putting it in the background somewhere, but just because I'm really pleased with it. But that might take a second, and the thread journal is probably going to go in the stand, so I'll need to put it somewhere safe in the meantime so that it doesn't get squished. Anyway, that's a problem for me to figure out. Please do like and subscribe. Comment if you currently have an embroidery project on the go, if you think I should do any of these differently or in a different order. Do let me know. And I will otherwise see you for the next project. Take care. Bye.